12 snipers had already taken the shot. 12 had missed. Captain Raul Reyes stood at the firing line of Camp Harlow, a remote army range carved into the Mojave Desert. His voice cut through the heat like a blade. Anyone still got the guts to try? Silence. Out in the distance, the steel silhouette target wavered in the mirage, almost disappearing in the 2,450-meter stretch of sunburnt air. The wind wasn't steady. It pulsed, shifted, lied. Ballistic computers, rangefinders, wind meters. They all gave numbers, but today, the numbers weren't enough. Then, one set of boots stepped forward. Maya Calder. She wasn't a SEAL, not a ranger, not a recon sniper, just a quiet name on the roster that most had already overlooked. 5'7", lean, calm. A dark braid pulled tight behind her shoulder. Most of them thought, she doesn't belong here. They didn't know she'd grown up reading wind across the wide plains of Montana. Didn't know her grandfather, Eli Calder, taught her to feel pressure change in the air before a storm touched the sky. Didn't know every time someone told her, you can't. She took it as, watch me. Sergeant Cole Thane broke the silence with a low chuckle. Let her try. That Lapua will kick harder than she weighs. Maya didn't even look his way. Her eyes never left the distant target. Captain Reyes glanced at the last 3 shooters who hadn't stepped up. 2 shifted uncomfortably. Maya moved. Boots pressing into cracked desert soil, she walked alone to the firing position. No applause, no welcome. But every head turned. Not because they believed she could make the shot, but because they were sure she couldn't. What none of them saw was this. The moment she stepped forward, something had already shifted. Not the wind. History. Where in the world are you watching this from? Let me know in the comments. And if this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss part 2. This story has only just begun. Long before Maya Calder ever held a sniper rifle, she learned to listen. To silence, to shifting air, to the kind of wind most people never even feel. She grew up outside Livingston, Montana. No neighbors, no city lights, just open plains and a battered wooden barn that smelled of walnut shavings and gun oil. Inside that barn worked Eli Calder, retired Marine sniper, rifle maker, a man carved from discipline and cold mornings. He didn't teach her how to pull a trigger. He taught her how a bullet thinks. Temperature, air pressure, mirage bending above dry grass. Wind talks, he'd say, tightening a scope mount with weathered hands. Most folks are just too loud inside to hear it. While other kids recited multiplication tables, Maya lay in frozen grass, reading which way the wind would turn by the way dandelions leaned. At 12, she could tell a wind shift before it touched her skin. At 14, under Eli's watchful eye, she learned to load ammunition, slow, precise, never rushing a single grain of powder. At 16, she made her first shot past a mile. Eli didn't smile. He just handed her another round and said, again. Then, one winter morning, his chair at the workbench was empty. A folded flag lay on the mantel. The barn went quiet, but the lessons didn't. At 20, she enlisted. Fort Benning's sniper school didn't welcome her with applause. They didn't force her out, but they made sure she knew she wasn't wanted. Sand in her rifle chamber, extra drills, whispered laughter. No one said she couldn't do it. They just waited for her to fail. She didn't. She graduated near the top, highest score in unknown distance estimation. Later in Afghanistan, she earned 11 confirmed hits under fire. Not perfect, just steady when it mattered. And yet, on the cracked earth of Camp Harlow, none of that followed her. Not her record, not her grandfather's legacy. Only the wind. and a target 2,150 meters away, daring her to prove it one more time. They thought she'd freeze. Instead, Maya Calder dropped to the dirt, locked the bipod of her rifle into the cracked ground, and the entire firing line went silent. Camp Harlow felt less like a training range and more like a graveyard for pride. 12 of the best had taken the shot. 12 had missed. Captain Raul Reyes stepped forward, army, not one for speeches. "You get one shot," he said quietly. "No sighters. Make it count." Maya just nodded. Behind her, arms folded, jaws clenched. Some waited for her to fail. Others hoped she wouldn't. Sergeant Cole Thane, who mocked her earlier, no longer smiled. At her side, a single figure knelt. Spotter, call sign Bravo. Calm eyes. No commentary. Just silent readiness. Maya unzipped her rifle case. Custom-built, .338 Lapua Magnum. Surgeon action, Macmillan stock, Night Force Attakar scope. The kind of rifle built not for parades, but for ugly work done far away. She lay prone, breath steady, cheek to stock like it belonged there. And then, she surprised everyone. She didn't dial for the wind at her position, because the wind at her boots wasn't the wind her bullet would live in. Halfway across the valley, where two ridge lines funneled air like a river, that was where the shot would be decided. No kestrel, no ballistic app. Just her eyes and the air itself. She watched the distance, the heat mirage a mile out bending slightly right, dust devils stalling over dry stone, shimmer flattening near the far ridge. That was the moment. The window where velocity, gravity, and wind all lined up. For just a breath. Then she began to dial. Not one wild twist, but controlled clicks. Right. More. A hair more. Enough to make the others mutter. She's overcorrecting. She's gonna miss the whole damn ridge. But Bravo said nothing. And Reyes just watched. Maya settled her finger on the trigger. One breath in. Slow. Exhale. Heartbeat. 72, 68, 64. Then the wind shifted. The wind shifted. Not a gust, not a storm. Just a quiet change. The kind that ruins good shooters and makes legends out of the rare few who don't flinch. Maya Calder didn't move. Cheek steady against the stock. Breathing low. Finger resting, not pressing. Bravo, her spotter, calm as ever, watched through his 40X optic. "Wind's unstable. You can hold or send it. Your call, shooter." She didn't answer, because she saw it. That perfect alignment no ballistic computer could time. Near the firing line, grass leaned left. At 1,200 meters, the mirage stopped drifting. On the far ridge, a dust spiral that had been dancing for minutes vanished. Still air, for a heartbeat. Her grandfather's voice echoed somewhere deep in her mind. "Don't fight the wind, borrow it." She exhaled. Natural respiratory pause, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked, deep and heavy, but she stayed welded to the stock. A custom-loaded .338 Lapua Magnum, high BC, handcrafted for extreme range stability, left the barrel at nearly 2,800 feet per second. Under normal field doctrine, this caliber wasn't meant for shots beyond 2 kilometers. Not unless the air was thin, the elevation high, and the shooter stubborn enough to try anyway. Then, silence. No tracer, no vapor trail. Just 3 long seconds where time forgot to breathe. Then, thud. Not the metallic ping of steel, a deep, heavy impact that rolled across the desert like a slow heartbeat. Bravo's voice cracked softly in her earpiece, more human than military. "Impact. Center plate." A second confirmation blinked on the command monitor, target cam footage showing dust blooming dead center on the steel silhouette. No one spoke. Cole Thane lowered his binoculars, jaw clenched so hard his teeth shook. Captain Reyes didn't congratulate her. He just looked at her like he was seeing gravity break. Maya didn't smile. Didn't stand. She stayed behind the scope, quiet, composed, as if waiting for the world to accept what had just happened. Because it wasn't just steel that took the hit. It was doubt, tradition, and the belief that this kind of shot only existed in stories. For a few heartbeats, no one moved. No cheer, no salute, just silence. The kind that only appears when people witness something they can't explain but will never forget. Sergeant Cole Thane was the first to break the stillness. No jokes, no pride. He stepped forward, boots crunching on dry earth. "You didn't get lucky," he said quietly. "You saw what the rest of us missed." Maya gave a slight nod. Nothing more. Captain Reyes approached next. His voice was steady, not loud, not dramatic, just honest. "That was one of the cleanest long-range hits I've seen under real field conditions," he said. He glanced at the steel plate in the distance. "Wind like that should have carried you off target. You read it before any of us realized it changed." There were no medals handed out on that field. No speeches. But the respect was louder than applause. Word spread. Some said it was instinct. Some said it was luck. But the target cam, wind logs, and Doppler trace told a different story. It wasn't luck. It was hours no one saw. Failures no one wrote down. And the belief that the wind would speak, if you were patient enough to listen. Maya didn't stay for interviews. 2 months later, she was back at Fort Benning. This time not as a student, but as an instructor in wind reading and ethical long-range engagement. 2 years later, she went home. Montana, open sky. The old barn where Eli Calder's tools still rested in dust and sunlight. She hung her rifle on the wall beside his. Beneath it, a small brass plate reads, 2,450 meters. Trust what you see, even when no one else does. People still ask her, "How did you know the wind?" She always answers the same way, quiet, steady. "I didn't. I just waited long enough for it to tell the truth." Because in war, and in life, the hardest shots aren't about distance. They're about belief. Belief in your training, belief in patience, belief in yourself, long before the world does.